that Paramacharyam,
great wonder, seeing,
Vasitam,
it was decided,
Maya,
by me,
Mahapurusha,
of Lord Vishnu,
Pujaya,
worship,
Siddhi,
result,
Kapi,
some,
Anusangini,
secondary. Translation. My dear mother, when I saw that all 49 sons were alive, I was certainly struck with wonder. I decided this was a secondary result of you having regularly executed devotional service and worship of Lord Vishnu. Purport: for one who engages in worshipping Lord Vishnu, nothing is very wonderful. This is a fact. In Bhagavad Gita 1878 it is said, Yatra Yogesvara Krishno, Yatra Pato Danodara, Tata Shri Vidayo Bhutiya Dhruva Nitya Natiyama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Gesvara is the supreme personality of Godhead, the master of all mystic yoga, who can do anything and everything he likes. This is the omnipotence of the Supreme Lord. For one who pleases the Supreme Lord, no achievement is wonderful. Everything is possible for him. Tadas tat paramaschayam viksha vyavasitam maya mahapurusha pujaya siddhikapyanusangini. My dear mother, when I saw that all 49 sons were alive, I was certainly struck with wonder. I decided that this was a secondary result of your having regularly executed devotional service and worship of Lord Vishnu. Jnana Tinananda Shakinandana Salakya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vacharam Pangam Nangayati Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurundi Natarinam Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Kristaya Mujave Shri Mata Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Sarasvati Om Ramani Prachayam Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasachata Satani Vanchakalalachadubhyascha Kripasamandivya Vinegyo Vaishnavyo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivastava Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So this is an amazing point that has been given here. That's Prabhupada quotes in the purport, Yatra Yogesvara Krishno. That is the last verse in the Bhagavad Gita. That is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a conversation. Actually, it's Dhritarashtra and Sanjay who are talking about what's happening on the battle. And Dhritarashtra is very anxious about what is going to be the outcome of this battle, my sons and the sons of Pandu. Dhritarashtra once said actually he was quite confident in one sense. In one sense he was confident that my sons will definitely become victorious because they have so much superior military power. The Kurus, the sons of Dhritarashtra, had 11 Akshauhinis of soldiers, and the Pandavas had 7 Akshauhinis. It's an enormous army, something like one Akshauhini is something like 100,000 soldiers and thousands of chariots and horses and elephants, and like it's a huge military division. And the Kauravas had 11 of those, Pandavas had 7 of those. So of course it was enormous armies in both cases. But still, the Kauravas had the far superior army, they also had in one sense it seems like far superior generals, Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, extremely powerful generals. And so that was one thing. But then on the other hand, Dhritarashtra had some uncertainty because it's on the holy place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetra, which, because the Pandavas definitely are more pious than my sons. He understood that they are perfectly pious. Maybe that will influence them, be to their benefit. And he had some doubts like that. So then Sanjay, he relates the whole conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And then we hear that, Krishna and Arjuna speaking. And then, in the end, again, then Sanjay, we hear him speaking. And his conclusion is clear. There's no chat. Krishna is there, Arjuna is on Krishna's side, they're together. Wherever there is Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna's devotee, that combination, there will always be, opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. There will be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, morality. So it turned out actually that by Krishna's presence, Pandavas, they just wiped out the army of the Kauravas. Of course, it was a heavy battle. There was heavy losses on both sides. But the Pandavas, they were, actually they came out. In the end, there was like 20,000 soldiers of the Pandavas left, and there was only a handful of the Kauravas. Of course, then something happened that should not happen. Most of the remaining Pandava army, 20,000 soldiers, were actually killed at night, irreligiously, by Asvatthama and Kripacharya. In a Vedic war, war only takes place during daytime. The war starts when the conch shells are blown at sunrise, and then the soldiers are out there fighting, and fighting like in a chivalrous battle, equals towards equals. Foot soldier to foot soldier, club fighter against club fighter, sword against sword, bowman against bowman, chariot driver against chariot driver, very, according to principles. And even if one soldier is fighting with a sword, and somehow or other, his sword is knocked out of his hand and it is there, then the other waits and he picks it up, and then they fight again. So it is, and there's no fighting amongst the civil population. And then when the sun sets, then the fighting is over. There's no more fighting that day, not against. But then, somehow or other emotions got so much carried away, and because it is when there's so much passion, and one can't get covered over and simply act without intelligence against all principles, which is always completely inauspicious. So that's actually happened to Asvatthama and Kripacharya, two of the leading soldiers, still surviving on the side of the Kauravas. That at night went into the camp of the Pandavas and they killed over 20,000 soldiers, slaughtered them. And that was, unheard of. So it's, in one sense it was, it's completely, and of course that means that Kali Yuga is approaching. In previous ages that would never happen, not even in Dwapara Yuga generally. But then in Kali Yuga is approaching, and qualified Kshatriyas even fell to that low. Of course, in also previous ages you had just militias and yavanas and rakshasas. They don't follow principles like that. But here we're talking about actually Kshatriyas following these principles. We had in the battle of between Ravana and Ram, that took place day and night, because they were Rakshasas, and Ram's army, they were monkeys. So they're not Kshatriyas. They're just fighting like anything, killing each other. But there were also, even before. There were also militias like that. They didn't follow any principles like that. I think we come from a place in the world where it was just militias. Of course, even then there was some principles, but you hear about the history we have here back, old Nordic history, how the kshatriyas and the kings and the princes and how they were fighting, conspiring against each other and killing each other from behind and like that. It was simply primitive militias. The Vikings, of course, we're so proud of the Vikings. You know about the Vikings, are they famous? So we're very proud, we're descendants of the Vikings. They were the worst barbarians and militias. They just would, sail out and then being drunk on something, then they went out and then they went into villages where they came and they just killed everyone, men, women, children, and plundered everything. I mean, there was nothing glorious about the Vikings, really. And they were even there in the time in Mahabharata. I was told there's one place in the Mahabharata actually where this thing was Satyaki, is he the leader of the Yadu army or like that, and some kind of connection with some battle. There were actually some kind of militia army, militias coming, with, I think it's even described, they had helmets with horns, or dressed in fur and like that, came with clubs, or were they half naked or something like that. And they came, and Satyaki, he was so amazed when we saw that, couldn't believe, what is that? So he was just, so finally someone had to wake him up. Hey, they're coming close now, have to stop them. And then he shot a few arrows and just finished them off. So they were the religions like that. But anyway, the Battle of Kurukshetra was a really high principled, as a kshatriya fighting. And Sanjaya, but finally he reveals to Dhritarashtra, there's no hope. Krishna is there. Arjuna and Krishna are together, and they will be victorious. All signs are there. It might look materially impossible for the Pandavas, but no, Krishna is there. Nothing is wonderful, as Prabhupada says here. Of course, in this testament too, it says, one who engages in worshiping Lord Vishnu, nothing is very wonderful. Of course, everything is very wonderful, but here the word wonderful means something. It's nothing is too impossible to actually be true. Anything can happen when Krishna and Krishna's devotee are combined. And of course, everything is always possible because Krishna is almighty. That's one thing, but of course that's a very important understanding to understand of Krishna, God, that He is actually almighty and anything can happen. That we see things here happen very, in one sense, limited within certain laws of nature like that, following time and so on. We think this, nothing can happen outside of that, but that's only because Krishna, He is keeping, things happening within seemingly laws of nature. Actually, there are no laws of nature. Prabhupada makes that point in one purport in the Bible, like he says about gravity. There's nothing like gravity. He said, what? There's no gravity. What does it mean? I just saw Mona's glasses just fell. Isn't that gravity? Prabhupada said, no, there's no such thing as gravity. There is only Krishna causing, or letting material nature act according to a certain regulation, and any time He can contradict that regulation if He wants. He is completely free. He's not under the laws of nature. The laws of nature are simply the regulated way He wants, because actually That's one thing about Krishna. He likes to be regulated. He likes things, because then you don't have to worry about, how the world acts and nature acts and like that, and then you don't have to worry about that. Regulation is, you might think freedom means no regulation, just doing what you want, but actually no, it's actually the other way around. Spiritual life is so regulated, the spiritual world is very regulated, Krishna is the most regulated. But then again, it's his own choice. He doesn't have to be regulated. And sometimes, often, he breaks the regulations. But that's according to his free will, but he can. There's nothing that, tells that next time they might fly up in the air, Krishna could make that happen. And if there was a reason why, if there was Krishna had a desire or reason for making it happen like that, then it would happen. It happened on the battlefield of Kurukshetra actually. Arjuna, when his son Abhimanyu was killed, he took a vow that next day I'm going to kill Jayadratha, or otherwise I'm going to enter fire. Because Jayadratha was the one who was caused of his son being killed. He's really the one who caused it, because he was able to, he kept the other Pandava soldiers from coming and helping his Abhimanyu. And when Arjuna heard that, I'm going to kill Jayadratha tomorrow, or I'll enter fire. Of course, then the Kauravas said, fantastic, Arjuna will enter fire. If we just have to protect Jayadratha, that he will not be killed. So they placed Jayadratha at the very end of the army, and whole army was in front of it. Arjuna would have to get hold of Jayadratha like that. But Arjuna started fighting, and he was making. It's like if you go someone going through one of these explorers going through a jungle with a machete, chopping down trees, making Arjuna, he's just fighting his way through the army, trying to get hold of Jayadratha, who wanted to flee, but they did not allow him, because that's not Kshatriyas, they don't flee from the battlefield. And then it was, Arjuna was fighting like that, and then the day was passing, time was passing, and like that, and it was getting close to the end of the day, and then the sun was setting. Arjuna was getting closer, but also the sun was going down, and then Arjuna was almost there, and actually the sun sets, and the battle was over. Because you cannot no longer fight again. In the sun sets, you're not supposed to fight. And then the Kauravas were just, Jai! Arjuna's gone into the fire now. And then what happened? The sun rose again. Krishna caused the sun to rise again. Wow! And then Arjuna took an arrow, shot Jayadratha and killed him. So, we think that the sun, rises and sets and like that. It's completely nothing in case, but Krishna, he can actually, and he did that in the battlefield. Suddenly, the sun again arose for a couple of minutes. It's so nothing is impossible for Krishna, and of course we know that God is Almighty. You have to understand that God is Almighty. That's the first thing, to understand Krishna. Krishna is Almighty, and do we actually believe it? Because all religious people will then accept God is Almighty. When it comes down to it, do you actually really believe it? It's a fact. God is Almighty. So then we read in the Krishna book how Krishna, he 7 years old, he lifts Govardhan hill on his little finger, and then was that's not God. That cannot. This is just stories like that. So then you have to ask, why should that just be stories? Do you think God cannot do it? Is there any reason why God? God cannot be here as a little boy. That's another point. Some will say, God will not come here. God cannot come here. You have that even in the Christian. Some Christians will say God cannot come to this world. He's too big, and he's too full of effulgence. So, first of all, he doesn't fit into this world. And if he came here, everything would be burned to ashes by his effulgence. So God cannot come here, and therefore he sends his son. That's fine. We are happy that he's sending his son and his prophets. That's true. He doesn't always come himself. He also sends sons and prophets like that. But he, to say that he cannot come in this world, again, how can you say, if you actually believe God is almighty, accept that, how can you say he cannot come into this world? As soon as you say God cannot, then you don't understand what the word almighty is. And he can. It's Krishna, that was Devaki when she was praying to Krishna after he had appeared from her womb. Then she was saying, actually, this is not very wonderful that you come from my womb, because of course you're so big, you're outside the universe, but also you're so small that you enter into even an atom and even the heart of a tiny living entity, and you are able, so you can be in the atom. So my womb is not as small as the atom. So if you can be so small, you can be in the atom. You can also be in my womb. That's not very wonderful. And so he can come and be amongst us like a seemingly ordinary person. Of course, that's only those who are rascals think that he's ordinary. Even though Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Adyanantam Bham Mudha Manushim Tam Asritam Param Bham Adyanam To Bhama Bhutama Hesvara. Fools and rascals deride me when I descend in the human form. They think, he's just another human, or like that. No, he's not. It is it's still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And actually, that's also a point, someone say we have imagined Krishna looking like a human, because it's like because we think also, this is how we look, so then we imagine God must look like that. And we paint him, according to our. So here we are almost all of us are white here, white-skinned, almost, which is some kind of leprosy problem, isn't it? Some kind of white leprosy. That's the skin we have. What can we do? But so then we would draw God like an old man with a beard and he's white. But if you go to Africa, then they'll paint God and he's black, and like that, because we imagine that God is something like us, and then therefore this is how we illustrate him. And no, that's not the fact. The fact is actually it's the other way around, that we have this particular form because God has that form. Our form is a copy of God's form, actually. And therefore, you also hear it stated in the Bible that man is created in the image of God. It's actually, our body is an image of God's form. It's a copy, kind of actually still an amazing body. This body is actually quite amazing. But material and temporary and like that. But still, it is like God's form. God has a face, God has arms, God has legs, God has a torso, very beautiful eyes, and smile, and nose. He has everything. He has everything like we have. But they're spiritual, and we have them because he has them. So he's not an ordinary person when he comes on this planet, and that's seen when he does. Every moment he does something extraordinary, hundreds of thousands of things every moment he does. He's just unfolding one fantastic, amazing activity after another. Some don't have eyes to see it, because some seem like very ordinary. A lot of the extraordinary activities, and mainly his dealings with his devotees. It's not so much he demonstrates always his opulence and power, and like that, but he does sometimes also. So then for example, he lifts Gaura hill, a big mountain on a little little finger, this little finger. So again, someone say this is too it cannot be true. This must be a story. But then that's actually what testing one's faith. Faith, do you really believe God is Almighty? And well, if you do, He could do it. He could do it. Because then you can begin to say, why would He do it? Well, then the answer is fun. The whole thing it's of course a very complex story, and He's saving His devotees and have all kinds of exchanges with His devotees there, and it's fun. It's quite fun to create such a tight situation, panic situation. Then God comes and He just lifts it. He lifts the whole mountain with His little finger. What an amazing pastime! And we're celebrating that. How is it? In a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
Friday 8 days. 7 days. Not this Friday.
Yeah. So that's like Gaura Puja, 10 days from today. There's Gaura Puja, big festival. We celebrate that, and to celebrate Krishna's almightiness and His protection of His devotees. Because, as I said, that's one thing that Krishna he manifests His potency. But the real thing that's real point is made here is its relationship with His devotees. Diti was performing devotional service, and therefore, by Krishna's, somehow the relationship between Diti, Krishna, and Krishna arranges that these 49 Maruts are not killed, but actually they continue living, which Indra is say this is wonderful. But actually, it's not wonderful because by the power of devotional service, everything is possible. Everything is possible. So that's also where, in one sense, we are tested. It's we shouldn't stand that what we are doing is not ordinary. It's devotional service. We are ordinary, but the service that is being given to us, which is not us, it's just a service that we are fortunate to be allowed to do. That is not ordinary, and that service is actually non-different from Krishna. Krishna is there in His devotional service. When we perform devotional service, it's not under the law of karma. Of course, if we do not surrender or do not surrender fully, then somehow or other, our karma is also there. Because that's one point. We are everyone in one sense performs wonderful activities. Everything is amazing, wonderful, and mystical, whatever happens, if you really think about it. But still, our activities, when we are ordinary conditioned souls, is limited by our karma. We cannot exceed our karma. We have a certain ability due to our previous actions. And Krishna is giving that ability. But He's simply giving, okay, this is how much you deserve, this is what you get. No more. You don't deserve. Like Mozart deserved the ability to write wonderful music. The rest of us, most of us, don't have that karma, and therefore we cannot write wonderful music, and we don't. But actually, the devotee, even though he may not have the karma to write wonderful music, but Krishna might give him the ability to write. If that actually was his service, he would have to, it would be completely impossible. It wasn't, but somehow or other, it was just Krishna wanted him to do it. It was necessary in his service, and then Krishna, then the devotee would be able to write much more wonderful music than Mozart ever composed. And we have so many examples of that.
Krishna